And welcome back to another Darkfall tutorial. Today we're going to be baking normals from a texture image. So once you know how to do this, you can go ahead and bake normals for all the other textures you may have. The first thing we want to do is make sure that you're in Cycles Render, and we can get rid of the default cube and lamp since we don't need them. Shift A, add in a plane, and then we just want to scale this up so we can see what we're doing. So press S and scale this up. And then since we've scaled things, we need to apply the scale. So Control and A. And then we can apply the scale. Okay, so what we need to do as well is add some more geometry, or add more faces to make the geometry. So tab into edit mode, and we can see there's only one face here right now. So let's subdivide this by pressing W and then subdivide. Now we want this to be subdivided a few more times, so if we press T, we just want to increase the number of cuts. I'm just going to say 5. You can again increase this if you want to, but we'll be adding a subsurf modifier, so that'll give us the extra faces. So just press T, get rid of that. So now we've got this, we can go ahead and unwrap it. If we hit 7 on the number pad and then press U, we can unwrap this. And then we can tab back out of it, and there we go. So now let's add the modifiers. Go to the modifier tab and then select the modifier. The first modifier we want is a subdivision surface to give us some more resolution or some more faces. But what we can see it does straight away is it sort of rounds these edges off, so we don't want that to happen. We'll just need to change this to simple, and we're going to come back later on and increase these values later on. So let's just add our second modifier, which is the displace modifier. Okay, let's just close this down for now. So first thing we need to do is hit new to add a new texture, and then what we can do is under texture coordinates change this from local to UV, and since we unwrapped it, we can go ahead and select the UV map like so. Now this value here is far too strong by default, but I'm just going to leave this as it is to show you what I mean. We need to add a texture now, the texture we want to create the normal for. So we can either press this button here, which will take us straight to the material palette, the texture tab, or we can just hit this button here, whichever you want. So now we can go ahead and open. As you can see, I've already started creating some normals for it using this technique, but for example, let's just do this one. Now you can see the preview of what it is. Doesn't really look that way on the plane right now, but we need to make a few adjustments. It does work better with a black and white image. If yours is color, then that's okay. We just go down to saturation here and just drop this down to 0. If you want to play around with these values as well to sort of bring the darks and the whites up and down to, crunch these values and get some deeper crevices, or not so deep. I'll show you what I mean. If we increase the contrast here, these black lines will be deeper. In fact, let's go to the modifier tab. Let's just give us some subdivision. Let's give us some... Okay, so by default, it'll only let us go to 6. But if you want more, you can just manually type in how many you want. So I'm going to give this 7 for now. And it's crazy an amount of subdivisions, but what we need to do as well is reduce the strength for the modifier. So let's go down here to the strength, and usually between a value of say 0.1 or 0.3 is usually good. So just play around with this to find out what's good for your scene or your texture. So 0.1, that's not too bad. Another thing we can do is if we hit T, go to smooth, make it smooth shading. Makes it look a little bit better. And again, you don't have to have this crazy amount of subdivisions. If you don't want to, you can go for a less resolution image and it'll still work fine, because you can see right now it's like 1 million triangles and 500,000 faces. So even though it's not slowing down the computer right now, it could get too crazy depending on what textures you use. Anyway, so we've got this is fine, the values are fine, it all looks good. Now you just need to bake it. Before we bake it, we need to apply the modifiers. So we need to apply the subdivision first and then the displacement. Make sure you don't apply this first and then this one, otherwise you will have some trouble. So let's apply the modifiers. And depending on how long or how subdivided your mesh is, it could take a little bit longer, so keep that in mind as well. Okay, so now these are done. What we need to do is split this window here, and we're going to change this to the UV image editor. And then what we're going to do is click new, and we can rename this to bake or normal, whichever you prefer. So we can leave the resolution settings, that's fine. We don't need the alpha, so we can uncheck that and then hit OK. Okay, so now we've got this, that's looking good. we just need to create a material for this plane. So go over to the material tab, new, and then under color or next to color, if we click this box here and just add an image texture. Now instead of opening an image texture, we just need to select this icon here and just choose the normal that we just created. That's fine. If we don't do this and you try and bake it, you will get like an error message saying you need to apply or select a default material. So just make sure you add a new material and just select this one for the image. So now if we switch back over to the render tab, we scroll all the way down, we have this bake option here. Just check that and scroll down some more. Now the bake type, we don't need to bake everything, we just want to bake a specific thing, and that is the normal. And we also want to change the space from tangent to object. Now make sure you have this plane selected, or don't deselect the plane when you're baking, otherwise it won't work. And then just go ahead and hit bake. Now again, you may get an error message up here. If you do, go ahead and fix the error. So we want to save this out. So if you want, you can press F3 and just save it out that way. Or you can go down to image, save as image. It's entirely up to you. I want to change this to a tiff output. If you want, go ahead and choose 8 or 16 bits. 16 bits just means there's more color information. 8 seems to work fine, but again, if you want that extra detail, go ahead and set it at 16. We can also set where we want to save this. So let's go to textures. This was under wood. And then if we select the original, we can just rename this normal high res. Save that as an image, and there you go, you've got your normal saved. So now you can go ahead and do the same technique for all your other textures, and when you do use the normal maps, you can tell the difference in your renders. It makes your render look a lot better having a normal map. So hopefully this tutorial helped. If it did, be sure to give it a like, and as always, thanks for watching.